I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
And hello everyone, and welcome to another Westerosi Ninja Election 2020 video. In this video, I will be offering a preview of the 5th Democratic Party presidential debate scheduled for tomorrow evening, November 20th, on NBC from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As I mentioned last time, you may all be wondering why I'm doing these political videos when most of the content on this channel revolves around Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, Star Wars, and trivia. Well, it's because, again, I feel that the upcoming 2020 election cycle may prove to be one of the most critical in our lifetime and could have far-reaching effects for our national economy, healthcare, income inequality, as well as foreign policy. So that's why. And I've also been asked, why haven't I talked about Republican Party debates? Well, I mean, the reason is pretty simple. The Republican National Committee hasn't even scheduled any primary debates, and the incumbent president has already stated that he will not participate in any primary nomination debates. As of now, there are about 3 nominees for the GOP nomination, with one, Mark Sanford of South Carolina, dropping out last week. So it's not really a race, and that's why I'm not covering any kind of Republican National Committee debates, because again, nothing's been scheduled, and our president is not already stated on record he doesn't want to participate. Anyway, so let's get started here. As usual, these are my opinions only, and I would like to stress that any opinions presented here is not necessarily representative of current collaborators or future guests on this channel, as I do live streams and videos on a variety of different subjects. So with that, let's go ahead and start. Well, here are the details for the 5th Democratic presidential debate. It's going to happen tomorrow, November 20th, 2019, and it's scheduled to go from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The location will be at the Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. I've never been there. I didn't even know Tyler Perry has studios, but hopefully it's a nice venue for this. The partners will be MSNBC and the Washington Post. And the moderators will be Andrea Mitchell, Rachel Maddow, and Christian Welker of MSNBC, and Ashley Parker of the Washington Post. And she also appears as a political correspondent with MSNBC as well. Qualifications for this debate were a bit different than last month, in that it got a little bit higher. The thresholds were a little bit higher. Basically, again, it consists of 2 parts. One is the polling criteria, okay, and these are from polls that have been publicly released between September the 13th to November the 13th of this year. You will need 3% support or more in 4 DNC approved polls, okay, that would be state, early state, or national polls. Or you can have 5% or more in 2 early state polls, and these will be Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and or Nevada. Please excuse the early state. It's just one early state here. That's the first component. The second component will be the level of grassroots fundraising. The donations have to be from at least 165 unique donors, and with a minimum of 600 unique donors per state in at least 20 states. Okay, so to qualify, you need to meet, again, the polling criteria as well as the grassroots fundraising criteria. So let's see now who is actually in the debate for tomorrow. And this is who we have. Okay, this is a preliminary podium order based on, I think, ABC News. They actually haven't come out with the official podium order yet that I've actually seen, but I'm taking the ABC News podium order as the one that is most likely to be correct here. And again, these are just based off of, I think, a combination of national polling averages plus state polling averages. And from left to right, what we have Cory Booker from the senator from New Jersey, Tulsi Gabbard, our congressman from Hawaii, Amy Klobuchar, senator from Minnesota, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg, and then our two front runners would be Elizabeth Warren, senator from Massachusetts, and former Vice President Joe Biden. And then we have Bernie Sanders, another senator from Vermont. And then we have Kamala Harris, senator from California. Then we have entrepreneur Andrew Yang. And lastly, we have Tom Steyer, a billionaire investor. And that is our polling order, as far as I understand, for tomorrow night's debate. And what you can see here in the bottom part of the slide is just the national polling data with basically the averages for each. And if you take a look at all the, kind of like the DNC approved national polls, we have basically Joe Biden ahead of everyone else with a 27% basically 27% number. And a lead of about 6.7% over his closest competitor, who is Elizabeth Warren at 20.3, followed by Bernie Sanders, and everybody else is kind of like in the single digits here. So that's what the polling data shows us, at least on a national scale. Now, I kind of want to dig down into the polls themselves, and as well as the fundraising. And what you can see here is the latest, the latest, Real Clear Politics poll averages here. And again, we have Joe Biden at 27, followed by Warren at 20.3 nationally, followed by Sanders at 18.8, then Buttigieg at 8.3, then Kamala Harris at 4.8, then Michael Bloomberg, who kind of announced his candidacy last week, but he didn't qualify for the debate yesterday. He's coming in at a 3.0, and then lastly we have Andrew Yang at a 3.0. Again, Joe Biden is ahead in terms of national polling average with about a 6.7% lead here. And now if you look at Iowa, we see that, surprisingly, Pete Buttigieg is ahead in Iowa, probably, claiming to his Midwestern roots there, followed by Elizabeth Warren, and basically a statistical tie between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders in third place. So Pete Buttigieg has about a 2.2% lead in Iowa. Then if you go into New Hampshire, which is actually the first primary of the presidential nomination schedule, we have Elizabeth Warren with about a 3% lead over Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. And the other two elections that are further out will be the Nevada caucuses and South Carolina primaries. In both cases, it looks like Joe Biden has a pretty strong leads in those states. Biden has a 9% lead in Nevada, followed by Warren and Sanders. And in South Carolina, Biden has a whopping 19% lead. Again, followed by Warren and Sanders there. In case anybody's interested, Vegas is still putting the the favorite nominee, as Warren with a 28.7% chance of winning, and followed by Joe Biden at 23.3. And surprisingly, Pete Buttigieg has a 19% chance of winning there. And lastly, Bernie Sanders at 14.7. I don't know how Vegas is coming up with these odds, but hey, that's what they're saying. So, if you want to bet some money on this, you can always follow Las Vegas's the bookies in Las Vegas and bet on Warren, because she evidently is the favorite here. So in terms of the fundraising, this is kind of interesting. In terms of who has the most cash in the bank, in terms of spending on sort of like ground level publicity, as well as TV ad buys. We're looking at Bernie Sanders. He does have, at the end of the Q3 2019, so at the end of September 30th of 2019, he has a lot of money in his bank, about $33.7 million that he can actually potentially spend on the campaign, followed by Warren with about $25.7 million in the bank, and The third place would be Pete Buttigieg at 23.4 million in the bank. And surprisingly, Joe Biden, who's like a heavy favorite in a number of these early states, as well as the leader in the national polling averages, he only has about 9.0 million in the bank to spend on the campaign, and that is pretty much what we have in terms of polling and fundraising data. I just wanted to go ahead and basically talk about this a little bit because again, these are the two criteria for how people actually qualify for these debates. So it's always interesting to look at this kind of stuff. So now let's just get on and take a look at the people involved in the debate. Why don't we? So the first guy that we have is Cory Booker, U.S. Senator from New Jersey. Signature issues, criminal justice reform, baby bonds, uh, government's program to curb, inequality. And his RPC average is about a 1.8, so which is about, 5.5% greater than what it was in the, right before the October debate. So he is moving up, slightly in terms of the national polling average. Who would like this candidate? People who are looking for an optimistic message to contrast Trump's negativity, our current incumbent, and northeastern city dwellers, if you will. In terms of people who want to avoid this candidate, we're looking at potentially white rural voters who don't want to focus on race and inequality. People like in Iowa, perhaps, and New Hampshire. That's why he's not really doing great in those states here, as well as liberals concerned about his Wall Street and Silicon Valley enthusiasts. He does have a lot of corporate donors from those places, respectively. So let's get into our next candidate here, and that is Tom Steyer. And basically, he's a former business executive and a current philanthropist. His signature issues is basically fighting climate change, promoting renewable energy, and impeachment, of course. His RCP national average hasn't changed from October. It's stayed steady at about a 1.0 on nationally. He's done well in a couple of these early states. Probably because he had just so much money to put into TV ads. So, and a lot of name recognition, basically associated with TV ads. And again, a lot of voters, I think a lot of the electorate is actually, I would call more or less, they vote based on no information. They just vote on basically name recognition, and that's why TV ads are very important here. Anyway, besides that, who will like this candidate? Voters frustrated with House Democrats, foot dragging on impeachment proceedings. They're going on right now. So again, I think this is kind of an outdated positive thing for why to vote for Tom Steyer and some environmentalists, because he was at the forefront of it, kind of like the environmental movement in terms of climate change and how we must stop it at this point. He's been doing that for about 2 or 3 years now. Who will want to avoid this candidate? Well, skeptics of self-funded campaigns. He's a billionaire. He has a lot of money to spend, and he's been essentially saturating the early state television markets with ads. As well as those distrustful of Wall Street, because he was the former CEO of Fairlawn Capital, which is a big hedge fund company, and he made his billions from that. So anyway, that's Tom Steyer. Let's get into our next candidate here, and that is none other than Tulsi Gabbard, current U.S. representative from Hawaii, and her signature issue is basically the opposition of American military intervention overseas. She's running on a isolationist platform, if you will, or where the U.S. should not be involved in regime change, wars, and also be stuck for years in these wars around the world. Her RCP national average has gone up about 0.6% since October to a 1.3, and you can thank Hillary Clinton for that. Who will like this candidate? Well, I think it'll be veterans. She has served and is served in the Middle East. in Iraq, and as well as she is still a current member of the YE Army National Guard, and it'll be veterans, some progressives, and voters looking to reduce military spending because of her isolationist views or her relatively isolationist views compared to other people in the Democratic Party, I would say. Who will want to avoid this candidate? I think people who are concerned about Islamophobia. She's made it quite clear that you know, she's not really a big fan of a lot of the politics that goes out in the Middle East, if you will. Also, concerned about the military-industrial complex because who has the most to lose in a isolationist regime in America? That'll probably be the arms manufacturers and supporters of global trade. Again, she wants to repeal NAFTA. She wants to basically be more protectionist in terms of our national economic policy. So again, that is Tulsi Gabbard. She's in. Our fourth candidate here will be Andrew Yang, entrepreneur, businessman, and his signature issues is basically the establishment of a universal basic income of $1,000 per month for all Americans, amongst other things. He's gone up about 0.3% since October to an RCP national average of about 3%. And who would like this candidate? Well, we got Silicon Valley ties. We have disillusioned Trump voters. So he's one of the few that actually has crossover appeal with the Republican Party, with voters from the Republican Party, promoters of the universal basic income, and anti-establishment millennials. He's actually like in second place amongst the 18 to 29 year group voting electorate. So, which is a very, very good place to be here. Who will hate this or avoid this candidate? Hate's kind of a strong word, would be people who are against higher taxes, obviously, to fund his UBI proposal. He wants to fund this through a combination of wealth taxes and value-added taxes, especially value-added taxes for tech transactions such as Google searches, Amazon purchases, Facebook searches, and whatnot. He's not really, Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg aren't really big fans of this guy. But anyway, that is Andrew Yang here. And let's see, our next candidate would be Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota, sitting U.S. senator. Signature issues are the opioid crisis, drug addiction, and addressing the cost of prescription drugs. Her RCP national average is about a 1.8, up about 0.5% from October. She's been actually, doing very well in some of these early states like Iowa and New Hampshire. I think Iowa is because again she's from the Midwest. She does have kind of have that folksy, if you will, Midwestern appeal. And who will like this candidate? Well, we're looking at people who are looking for a Goldilocks candidate. She runs on a very centrist platform, neither too left or too right, and a woman who appeals to Midwestern voters. She's proven in her tenure in the U.S. Senate that she is a consensus builder and is willing to reach out across the aisle as well. So who will want to avoid this candidate? Well, we're looking at, again, the more left-leaning progressives of the party. Because they will oppose her centrist policies. She's not she doesn't support Medicare for all. She's actually pro gun control. She's actually she has a more centrist stance on gun control as well as taxes. So that is Amy Klobuchar. So let's go into our next candidate. That is none other than Kamala Harris, U.S. Senator from California. Her signature issues are, middle-class tax cut and a liberal civil rights agenda. So she actually promotes more of a cultural kind of change, if you will. And a bit of the, bit of tax cuts. So she's more of a neoliberal Democrat. That's why I would put her in. Her RCP national average is about a 4.8. It's up 0.3% relative to this time last month. But no, her campaign's been really struggling in terms of fundraising and as well as in the early states, early voting states such as Iowa and New Hampshire. You know, she's actually been on a downward trend since about August. Perhaps from since being kneecapped by Tulsi Gabbard in the July debate. But anyway, who will like this candidate? Well, we're looking at basically fans of Obama's progressive pragmatism and basically basically looking for a candidate who will unite the party's multi-ethnic coalitions. She's really big on her, basically promoting her identity as a woman of color. Who will avoid this candidate? We're looking at pretty much progressives who thought Obama was a sellout, those who question her mixed record on reforming the criminal justice system, especially when she was Attorney General in California a few years back. So that is Kamala Harris. And let's go into next candidate, Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana. His central issue, generational identity, and focused on climate change and economic opportunity. His RCP national average is an 8.3, and it's up a significant 3.3% than this time in October. So he's one of the few that's actually been gaining ground in a meaningful way, especially in the early states. Iowa, I mean, he is actually the front runner right now for the Iowa caucuses. Who will like this candidate? Well, it pretty much will be the generational change voters. I kind of group them into kind of like the baby boomers, if you will. Some millennials who are more interested in cultural change versus economic change, if you will. LGBT, TQ voters. He could be the first openly gay president of the U.S. if he does get voted in. Voters from the Midwestern flyover states and social progressives who will want to avoid this candidate. Well, we're looking at people looking for a more experienced candidate. Remember, he is the youngest candidate in the field. He's only 37 years old, as well as conservative Christians of the Democratic Party who may be opposed by his identity. So that is Pete Buttigieg, and let's get into Bernie Sanders, U.S. Senator from Vermont. His signature issues: Medicare for all, single-payer system, free college tuition, and curtailing the influence of billionaires. And he's been surging as well. He's up 3.6% from this time last month, and with an RCP national average of 18.8. So, his health issues notwithstanding, he's actually been doing very well in terms of gaining ground on the front runners. Who will like this candidate? Well, it'll be converts to the idea of a universal health care, single-payer system, and higher taxes for the wealthy. And also the anti-establishment millennial voter electorate, who make up a very, very significant portion of that electorate. Who will want to avoid this candidate? Well, probably big business, because they stand to lose the most for higher taxes for the wealthy. Hillary Clinton fans still hurting over her loss. They're still blaming Bernie for her loss in 2016. And people of color who may be alienated by Sanders' last campaign in 2016, where he didn't really basically proactively get in touch with a lot of the minority segments of the voting electorate, and people put off by his self-proclaimed socialist label. So, Bernie Sanders. Let's get into our next candidate, and that is none other than Elizabeth Warren, a U.S. Senator from Massachusetts here. Her signature issues are income inequality and regulating big corporations and political corruption. She's down 5.7% since this time in October to a 20.3 in the RCP national average. So she's actually, with the rise of Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders, they pretty much siphoned off quite a bit of her votes in the past month here. Now, who will like this candidate? Well, detailed oriented voters who like her mix of East Coast academic know-how and Midwestern roots, policy honks. She has a plan for everything, but if you took a look of her plans for Medicare for All and the tax on the wealthy that she's actually put out in the past month, there are some issues with that, and I think she's been getting criticism for those plans, for those. So, you know, she does have this appeal, right, to basically more of the establishment elite, if you will, and we'll see how it goes for that. Who would want to avoid this candidate? Well, there'll be people who are distrustful of the natural elite, such as her, people who doubt that she has enough personal appeal and can actually lure the centrists in a general election. And voters turned off again by the whole Pocahontas debacle that came forward in the past couple of years. So don't want to get into that, but that's Elizabeth Warren. And let's get into our last candidate here, and that is our front runner, Joe Biden, former Vice President of the United States. His central issue, restoring America's standing on the global stage and getting back to the era of Obama-style pragmatism in the country. He's down a little bit from October, but about 0.8%. But he still has a 27.0 RCP national average, which is pretty good actually. He's up again about 7% or 6.7% relative to the second place candidate. And who would like this candidate? Well, it'll be Democrats who think a safe pair of hands is a tested white man. And you got it there. He is definitely has the most experience in terms on the foreign and political stage than pretty much anybody else in running for the candidacy, the nomination. Independents who are nostalgic for the Obama administration, the ones who left in 2016, who want to get back to more saner times before our current incumbents administrations, and also Republicans. Trumps have lost, obviously. Who want to avoid this candidate? Basically, it will be more of the left-leaning progressive millennials eager for a new generation of leaders, and also the more far-right conservatives who weren't big fans of Barack Obama. That's pretty much for our presidential nominees that are going to be on the stage tomorrow night. I just want to also comment that the two people that are missing from October's debate are Julian Castro, and who hasn't yet dropped out, but his campaign is struggling a little bit, as well as Beto O'Rourke, who did actually officially drop out a couple of weeks ago. In terms of the election 2020 calendar, let's see what's coming up here. Well, tomorrow is going to be the fifth Democratic primary debate, and that's going to be in Atlanta, Georgia. And then next month, we will have a Democratic Party primary debate in Los Angeles, California, and the qualifications thresholds of those are going to be a little bit higher. And the partners for that debate next month are going to be PBS and Politico. And in January 2020, there should be another primary debate, but that actually hasn't been announced in terms of where the location is going to be. And then comes party time in February 2020, February the 3rd, we got the Iowa caucuses, Democratic and Republican caucuses. And then on the 11th, the week after, we have the New Hampshire primaries. And on February 22nd, we had the Nevada caucuses. And on February the 29th, we have the South Carolina Democratic Party primaries, and there may or may not be Democratic primary debate scheduled for February, but we'll see about that. And then in March 2020, March the 3rd, we will have Super Tuesday, where there'll be a lot of delegates up for grabs for that. I'll talk about that later in later videos. And that is pretty much, guys. Thanks a lot for coming out and watching this video. And stay tuned for the review or the recap video of the Democratic debate tomorrow, sometime later this week. And with that, just want to say, have a great day and a great week. And I will see you all next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.
I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
Ultra Ninja JK, dupla jinxa, bota chakra em cada linha de faca. Face, macramé no micado, base, espadas por frases. Sintático, repara no que diga, é paradigmático. Não tenho paralelo, sou para lá de mágico. Sabes como rolo, martelo pneumático. Técnica secreta do monstro roxo. Estamos a meter-nos no dojo, estamos a manter combos no jogo, só com uma espada nos tojos. Plano picado, não sabes de onde esta ave vem. Nenhum radar pode detectar onde está a nave, mãe, tu sabes bem. Somos a clique, somos o clã. É Monster Jeans cabrão, respeito ao vais comer tartan. Na terra do nunca não digo banzai. Vivo na espunca e tenho um bonsai. Ninja que é ninja, ninja, frotas imperiais. E bate mal, logo bate mais. A minha crew não sem espelhos. Na rua, dragão azul, dragão vermelho. Sente o silêncio. Verso shinobi, nunca me canso. Sou de Nairobi, ágil como um ninja. Rápido como um ninja, letal como um ninja. Brutal como um ninja, fatal como um ninja. Forte como um ninja, secreto como um ninja. Deve mesmo ser um ninja.
Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus ninjas? Ninjas, 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 ninjas. Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus ninjas? Ninjas, ninjas.